and to listen in, to Elder Jim. I'll just give a brief introduction and yeah, let Jim start his, teaching and share his, wisdom. So Elder Jim Leyden is a traditional Indigenous land defender and water protector with Anishinaabe and Irish Italian ancestry. He was invited by the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh elders to become the elder at the Coast Salish Wash House on the Burnaby Mountain since 2018. And his role is to conduct ceremonies, to keep peace, and to monitor activities of the Trans Mountain Tank Farm and Pipeline expansion project. And he was trained in social work and has extensive experience supporting addiction recovery and expanding Indigenous programs in the downtown East Side and beyond. And in some ways, Elder Jim is no stranger to our UBC community. He's currently the UBC Center for Social Climate Justice community member. He also has offered his knowledge and expertise to the 2023 report, Contamination and Conflict, by the UBC Climate Justice Research Collaborative, and the same report that our very own Dana James contributed to. And so I encourage you to look up this report, especially the ArcGIS story map, which is like really great storytelling and really good information about the impacts, environmental and social impacts of the Trans Mountain Expansion Project, and why also like why Elder Jim's work is incredibly important. And I've only known Elder Jim since last fall when I started volunteering with the Mountain Protectors. And I'm grateful that he has agreed to come and share not only his wealth of knowledge, wisdom, but also his great sense of humor with all of us today. So yeah, please help me in welcoming Elder Jim, and the floor is yours.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for coming. You never know what you're going to get when I speak. I'm putting my hat in the work position. There we go. Got to start the timer or I'll run over time on everything. If you hear me telling stories, stop me. So my name is Kwekwecnewtxw, my spirit name, which means Black Bear Warrior. And like to say, I'm the elder at the Kwekwecnewtxw Center. And that is a Coast Salish name meaning a place to watch from. And it's gonna talk about that for a second. I'm gonna get a bit of my own history, considering the audience I'm dealing with. So the watch house is a traditional building that used to be placed near the water of all villages. And a family would live in it and they would watch what was going on around there, and they'd come down and tell the community. It was always up higher than the community, than the shoreline. They tell the community, hey, like there's canoes coming, they're friends, so the community makes up the feast. There's canoes coming, it looks like it's a war party. They all take out their bows and arrows just whatever's happening. There's a fire over here, whatever, right? So you report on stuff. So we put this over. This is actually over top of the pipeline. You would see the yellow stanchions showing for marking the pipelines on either side of this watch house. And it's built in Burnaby Mountain. It was built the same day of the big rally up there. Because it was really hard for them to stop us. It was a brilliant. I don't know who came up with it. It was a brilliant idea. Because you got thousands of people there, you're not going to try and stop them doing anything for the most part. So, so I was asked at the camp to be a part of the camp and to carry the stories that formulate our culture, and to kind of keep the peace. So we were doing that at the tank farms. At the tank farm and West Ridge Marine Terminal, and a part of keeping the peace was bringing out our pipe. I'm a pipe carrier, so we bring out the pipe and try and talk to people. So I'm going to go back first, just to let you know, I have a history of activism throughout my entire life. I was like a 13-year-old kid working with the California grapes boycott. And I always remember my dad found all the banners and picket signs underneath the back steps. And he owns hotels, my adopted dad. And he just, that stuff's got to be out of here before I come back, you know? So he didn't support my activism. But anyway, I went on from there, got involved with the NDP. I have a landmark thing with the NDP where I put forward a motion that donations to political parties should be moved to the credit side, not the deficit side of the. So it means that if you have donated money, it all comes back to you, or it comes back to you in some percentage, whereas before it had to be taken off of your income. So that disentitled the poor. So anyway, we brought that and it actually passed. So that's a part of everything you do every day. And that's a part of what activism is. We talk about activism. Like I say, did the great boycott. We've also been involved in the struggle in the downtown east side to stop, I don't know what you call it. It's just an absolutely racist, classist attack on the poor. And it's just getting worse. The other day, I was looking at a friend named Wheels, who I saw him at Oppenheimer Park, and all of the people he lived with have died, you know? And I was just kind of going, this man has survived diabetes. He has one of his legs cut off. He's survived alcoholism. He's survived drug addiction. He's survived everything else that's going on there. But I don't think he's going to survive this new mayor. I really don't. And, you know, that's where activism comes in, where people, I don't view myself as a radical activist. I think activism is an important thing that everybody has to do in your jobs or wherever, and that's part of what I wanted to talk about. So within your jobs, it's taking a look at when your mind says to you for a second, this isn't right, you need to take a look at that as an employee. You need to take a look at that as a member of our system and our society. If it isn't right, what can I do to make it right? What can I do to help make it right? And we have Romilly, a brilliant what do you call it, petroleum engineer, who saw she was working with Trans Mountain. She saw what they were doing. She worked with Kinder Morgan. She saw what they were doing and the way they were cheating and disrespecting everything, and she walked away. And she helps us. She consults with us. She does all sorts of stuff. She basically is running a consulting business now. But that was her. So we use her all the time, and she knows what's going on in there. So at one point I was going, well, I can smell oil. What does that mean? Just if you smell oil, it only means one thing: there's oil, you know. And I would talk to her when things happen. We'll get into that in a minute. So I'm just going to say, as a part of this, there was a major shipment of oil happening from Trans Mountain of dirty soil, of oil contaminated soil, happening from there and going out to the Kwekwecnewtxw Nation's landfill area where they're building an industrial park. And we knew that that land was contaminated because you could smell it from up on top of the hill. But they kept shipping it, and they had this way in which they shipped. I don't have any video. I got some videos coming up. But they had this way they shipped it, in which the trucks would come in and drop the soil off at this one part of this large mound of soil that had been sitting there forever. And then these other trucks would come in and get loaded up by a front end loader, but the front end loader only took the new soil. So they're taking the soil and they're taking it to Kwekwecnewtxw. I had someone tell me what that place is about, so we traveled over there to see it. And it actually is right at the water table. When we went there was water like that far above the ground. It was a culvert. So they're putting this stuff there. So we'll look at that. I went through that stuff. But so I ended up anyway being arrested. And this is the part of being an opportunist to influence change. I allowed myself to be arrested. which means I put myself in a position where they would choose to arrest me. And then I said, I want to fight over the fact that you're on unceded territory. We went to court and we did this battle over that. Then they arrested me later on when we were trying to stop the ships trucking that contaminated soil out. In all of the stuff I talk about, remember, we are in an existential crisis right now. You know, that you've seen it now, like it's like they treated us like quacks when we first came in and said, well, it's all going to fall apart. There's going to be floods and storms and fires. And that's exactly what's happened. Last week, there was not one part of North America that was not under climate warning. You know, so that a few years ago, that was considered radical. Maybe it's just good foresight. You know, so then we were doing this blockade, stopping the trucks from running the soil out, you know, out to Port Coquitlam, and nothing happened then. The police came and they joined. I held the pipe ceremony at the very end, and I moved myself over to the side. I brought everyone over to the side, held the pipe ceremony, and that was to end this thing in peace. Suddenly people knew it was time to go. And we had the police in that circle joining the pipe ceremony. 2 weeks later, my lawyer called me and said, what the heck did you do? I said, what do you mean? This is a warrant out for your arrest. They issued a warrant 2 weeks after the event for my arrest. And so I fought it, obviously, and I appealed. I lost. We had a racist judge. I don't pull any bones saying that. And she was just nailing everybody, and she refused to take into consideration anything that had to do with Indigenous rights. The Gladue report, which says too many people are in prison. The Truth and Reconciliation report, which has a clause that says you have to try to find somewhere else, something else to do with Indigenous people, and not send them to prison. She ignored all of that. She said, oh yeah, I know that. And she saw my Gladue report. She said, yeah, you've gone through a really hard time in your life, but you know, I was in the scoop and all those things. I don't want to focus on that stuff here. We're going elsewhere. But we really have to identify the beast, right? And it was a racist that was running that place, and it's allowed to be that way. So we appealed, and the appeal court tore a strip off the prosecutor and her, and ended up throwing out the case and telling them they could try me again. And when they came up to try me again, the prosecutor said, it was pick a date established. Prosecutor said, we don't see any path forward to charge him. It's still going to be the same stuff. I had permission to do pipe ceremonies, and so she stopped. And then the lawyer for Trans Mountain gave me kind of the high sign at one point. So, oh, I got something here. She said she's not going to she's not going to proceed either to try and sue me. Well, the judge said, oh, I guess that's it. This is this racist judge I'm talking about. She slams her laptop closed and she starts to walk away. And then she turns around in the middle of nowhere and she points at me and says, this will never happen again. And then she gets back on the bench and she points at the prosecutor. She says, I expect you to let them know what they can do and what they can't do. She never accepted any of the stuff that the court said about her. They said she didn't allow any exception for indigeneity, and that she ended up actually looking up other cases. She brought other cases in that weren't brought into court to justify sending me to jail. So they went after her for that, and she didn't acknowledge that. She just said this was all on the prosecutor for not giving her the right information. So anyway, that's what we're facing within this. I'd rather be kayaking on any good day, you know, but this is existential. I'm going to talk also about myself, that I'm a sun dancer. And sun dancers spend, you know, 4 or 5 days a year in which they don't eat, they don't drink, they dance for the people, and they pierce, they spill blood. So it was long held, even during the Indian Wars in the States, the sun dancers were the first people in line, because the sun dancers had proven that they had no fear of the pain that they would have to go through. So they were the first people put in the line. And so we're doing the same thing here. There's myself and the fellow Stacy. We're both sun dancers, and we're there just doing what we have to do, right? And that was part of why I was asked to be the elder watch house. So I'm going to go through one particular action that we were involved in. I was involved with a woman named Elan, and we were just driving by and we saw them trying to haul some dirt and contaminated soil out. So we followed them. We followed them all the way up to Clean Harbors in Delta, where they burn contaminated soil and thereby sterilize it. So I guess I'll just move on into this. Because it's 13 minutes already, I'm planning to go 5 talking about me. No, that's the pointer. We'll go. Yeah, so that's the watch house. That's the where are we? That's the pipeline there, and the watch house is right over there. And Westridge terminal is there. That's where the big battles are going to start shortly. So what they've done is they put way more tanks in there as a part of preparing for the diluted bitumen to come in, coincidentally, which is the dirtiest oil in the world. And we still have to ask when our villages are burning to the ground, when our rivers are overflowing and flooding our farmland and that, why would you want to sell oil? You know, why would you want to sell something that's identified as the key component to global warming? They put $35 billion into this pipeline. That might clean up the housing problem in Canada. You know, there's a lot of other things. Just go through that for yourself. What are the things that you know, that could be done and could be so anyway, that's the site. Our job as mountain protectors was to do surveillance around there, so we'd go all around them. Oh, that's okay, I guess I'm moving. Just turn it off. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so we used to go all the way around here, and we had spots set up where we'd do photography. And then over here at Westridge as well, we had a whole bunch of spots where we were photographing and seeing what was going on. And we reported it to the people and to the media, which is a new version of our village. Okay, so I'm gonna hit the right button. So that's the whole thing. The police used to rally over here at Squint Park, and they would come over to either to Westridge or here in force to stop our actions. So our watch house is right there, which is right over top of pipelines that run in. So anyway, that's the avenue in which we do stuff. And we're going to talk about culverts that run along here and there. Sorry, both sides of this road here. And they feed into, one of them feeds into there, but ultimately they feed into an Eagle Creek, which is a salmon stream that's starts right down there. So all the water from there, from the salmon stream, comes from Trans Mountain, from the runoff at Trans Mountain as they're doing their work. Okay, so that'll be wrong button. So I'm going to do this section on contaminated soil. I'm trying to whip through this fairly quick because it's a specific action that we took at one point. So there's contaminated soil near the south fence. So that's kind of the history of what happened. We found the contaminated soil. We watched them from behind bushes and stuff. We hide behind bushes. And then we watched the hydrovac, and that's what you're going to see right now. And we're going to watch them trying to slip contaminated soil out of there without markings on the vehicles. So this is the area right here. The contaminated soil is. These yellow markers that you see are all markers to tell you that there's pipeline running there. And these heavy equipment is supposed to be sitting on platforms so it doesn't break through the pipeline. So the other thing I want to point out is right here and over here, there are culverts. This one actually feeds over to here, and then it runs off and into Eagle Creek. So these all feed into Eagle Creek. The other one runs into the main, what do you call it? Runs into the main reservoir. So that's security cameras. That's fencing that can be made electrical immediately. They have the switches in 4 different spots. If we were to try anything drastic, our teaching was to be peaceful as we did all of this stuff. So we follow that teaching. So this is the hydrovac truck. So we found the soil contaminated, and they brought in hydrovac trucks. And the hydrovac trucks, basically, they drill a hole, then they put the vacuum down, and they pour. You'll see there's kind of 2 lines there. One adds steam, and the other one vacuums up. So they add steam, and it releases the soil. It releases the oil from the soil so they can vacuum up the soil. But the other stuff that's left just floats downhill. And that was what when I was talking to her, to Romney, she said, I said, well, how do I know if they're getting it all? She says, well, if they don't, just look downhill, you'll find the oil. Okay, so this is him. He's putting his head in. I don't know. I don't enjoy the fumes. But so we're just showing there's 4 different pictures here of the trucks, and they're doing that entire area. So that was a large spill. Yet they tell you they monitor the spills, they know what's happening in these tanks. Well, my argument with this is they're tearing all the rooting out. It may be that rooting has already broken up the pipe. But what happens as soon as they break the earth is the smell of the oil comes out. Until then, the earth contains it. So that's the Clean Harbors dumpster. And when we first started, we didn't know what a Clean Harbors dumpster were. We saw all these red dumpsters all over the place. That's where you put your contaminated soil and contaminated product. There's a line here that they're not supposed to fill above, but you'll see obviously they have. Just kind of try and keep us. Come on, you can do it. So that's just to show you the line that they really piled it high. So we're calling this a chase. We came by and we saw a truck picking up that dumpster one day. So that's the truck. It's from Alberta, which means it has no right to practice here without a tag that says it's licensed in BC. I'm asking what's wrong with this. If you take a look, there's no placard, dangerous material placard. The reason for the dangerous material placard is if something happens, there's an accident on the highway and this thing spills or it catches fire, then the firemen know what they're dealing with, right? It's supposed to be on the front and on the sides. So that meant to us, well, there I answered the question. So we have to take pictures of all the road signs as we go by too, in case this comes up in court, prove that we did follow them all that distance, right? So that's basically what I just explained. So this is Clean Harbors. Clean Harbors was set up when they had the spill in English Bay. So people come in here and you'll notice now, what, get me back there. Don't do that to me. You'll notice now, no label there either. So it's not labeled at all. So our thought was that they're going to take it and dump it somewhere. It's an Alberta truck you can take off back to Alberta. We're going to have contaminated soil sitting somewhere in along our river basin. That's the truck unloading its goods. These are the signs. I just thought they were really worth taking a picture of. That's what we're dealing with, and that's what we were shipping. So we're back here looking. Oh, take me back. Oh, I blew my joke. Anyway, so what they do is they seal the area. That's the one where they broke it open. The area they broke it open. So they seal that area with plastic and they put bags all over it. Also, with these dumpsters, these are special tarps that are made in Texas. They probably cost a fortune, and they stop the soil from breathing, and they stop the odor from getting out. And again, I'm going to point that we have right here. They kind of tried to fill this in with straw, but that is still a culvert, and we've got a culvert right here, and any of that stuff that spills over onto it, you know. So all of these trees, I gotta let you know too, everything you see here that's coniferous, deciduous, that doesn't have leaves on it right now, they're all gone. They cleared them all out. On one level, I don't know if I find a problem with it because at least it's more fireproof on there. But the reason they cleared it out wasn't that. The reason they cleared it out was the first year we made them stop work because the birds were up in this area here nesting. So they made them wait for nesting season to be over. So we win by these little things that we cause them to stop at. And this is just so Monty Python. It's amazing. After we followed the truck, they showed up with a sign that says potentially contaminated soil. Like they have to label that for us, but they did. Anyway, I'm going the wrong place. That's a barrier that stops stuff from contaminants from blowing in to the to the two culverts, and it's not up properly. That's not stopping much on the one side. So this is further down where they actually broke through some more contaminated soil, and they have the dumpster there. And these are actually supervisors that are trying to decide what to do with it. The white hats are supervisors, blue hats are environmental officers, and the yellow hats are the flunkies. Oh, did I do that again? This is where it dumped. That's the culvert there that it dumps into to go to Eagle Creek. Is on the other side of that road. So that's all that water is ending up in there and going into a salmon spawning area. Found this too. It's just a cute. So we've gone through that stuff around that. There's stuff at the end, some paperwork I'll show you. So we found asbestos markers in there too. You just find things, you don't know what you're looking at until you see it, right? This was cute. I was under my van fixing my starter, and these guys pulled up across the road, and they got out and they started dumping the water from there, contaminated water. There it is, see? So I took pictures. I took some pictures of them as well, which I won't show you. But they ended up being charged. The company was charged. Trans Mountain said, we have nothing to do with that. I don't know if you remember the person who sat in the tree. That happened the day after this. And we're in the West Ridge area. And this truck comes out, the same truck, same people. You know, so Trans Mountain sitting there saying, oh, we don't even hire them. That must have been from some other site. We don't know those people. We have never had that truck on our property. We caught them the next day. We know they had it because we keep track of numbers of trucks. Anyway, so that's the nature of the beast there. That's it dumping out from the reservoir. So this is in Chilliwack. Chilliwack, I take that back. This is in Hope. And there's two things to see here. First of all, they have salmon. That's what that's pointing to. They have salmon in here and salmon over here. The front end loaders, these loaders, they never meant to be in water because one, like, what do you call it? Diesel fuel, it gets in the gills of the fish, and the babies turn, they can no longer move enough to eat. and the babies turn into spinners, the fry. It gets in their gills and they can't navigate. They just spin like that. They die. They go until they die. And they should never have been on there. But you know, that's Trans Mountain. I'm going to keep saying that every now and then here. This was by Westridge Terminal. There were 100 of them. I just took a picture of one. I took a picture of the 100, but I only brought one picture here. So there's 100 of them. They died outside of spawning time on the Indian Arm right next to Westridge Marine Terminal. So what we've actually done now is work with the forest people here, and they're going to test the salmon, or water, whatever. They're going to test the salmon. They also have some people in BC. They're testing them for toxins. The ones in BC, rather in Ontario, are testing them for they're testing them for stress. And that's really important because when that big boats start coming in, we may find them getting stressed out of it because of it. Okay, so this is this is a letter that was written in. I won't take it. That's what we were asking for in the Freedom of Information search. That's the continuation of it. BC Environment is responsible for soil repatriation, and they test soil when it's supposed to be contaminated with whatever, not just soil. And that's their answer to us. Although we conducted a thorough search, we found nothing. Trans Mountain has never submitted an application to them to have soil tested. Okay, so this is the the Environmental Assessment Agency. And they, so they answered this too, but they answered this way differently. That again is what we asked for. Their answer to us was that as well, or a version of that. And then they also said, and this is really cute, direct permitting for soil removal, transport and disposal does not fall under CER's mandate. So they say, rather these come from other jurisdictions, but rather than say to us, they come, the Environment Ministry, Provincial Environment Ministry has to test it. They just keep using the term other jurisdictions. So they aren't pointing us to anything. And then, I don't know if this will be here or not. The other thing they did was to say that we should get a hold of Trans Mountain. Our problem is whenever we get a hold of Trans Mountain, they tell us to get a hold of the energy regulators, and they tell us to get a hold of Trans Mountain so we can play. And then both of them will turn around and tell us, uniquely enough, they'll tell us, call us next Thursday. I don't know what they have going on Thursdays, but they tell you to call them next Thursday and they say, well, we haven't got the answer for you yet, So the guide they direct us to, remediation process guide, is the one which gave me that information I just gave you. And we knew that in advance, that the provincial government tests and they send it to Canadian energy regulators. The results in Canadian energy regulators determines they will or they will not allow the soil to be shipped. So they're telling us here that there was a test in October 21, which would have been the test for those truckloads of things that were going out to Port Coquitlam. And they're telling us there was a test. Well, we know the test had to come back dirty because we know there was oil there. So if they got a dirty test or notice of contamination, which they talk about there, why are they allowing it to be shipped? The collusion is absolutely amazing. I did it again. I must be telling me something. Okay. that's a new work that George Ramos did of the Trans Mountain logo. They usually don't have the sunken ship or the fire. Just put it in there for fun. And just to talk about that for a second, doesn't matter what you talk about oil spills and that, they will always understate. There's an absolute policy that you can follow. They will understate and say that they have 10,000 barrels of oil that spilled. And then 4 or 5 days later, they come back to the media and say, oh, we checked it out and there was a mistake. This is all over North America, they do this. We checked it out and there was a mistake. It was actually 100,000 barrels. So they lowball you so you can get reactive but not really angry, and then they amend it, and you've already gone through the emotional, grieving of the process, right? So that's I think I'm done. I just got no. Oh, good, did that. Yeah, that's she put that in after I got here, sneaking things in on me, eh? So there are things you can do outside your jobs as well, like joining mountain protectors or other groups. Looking at the Tsleil-Waututh Sacred Trust site and finding out what it is Tsleil-Waututh says about the contamination and what they've been doing. They've been doing some major work. They now have elk back on the mountains there. They now have some of the beds that they can actually pick shellfish off of. And that's what they've been fighting so hard for, is to reclaim the shellfish. You'll always hear them talking about at supper time. We would go down to the beach and our table was set. There'd be fish in the water, there'd be shellfish, there'd be crabs, and we could go home and we could eat. Now you can't touch that stuff. So they're trying to get it back. Sacred Trust is trying to get that back. And so you can understand why we sit here on unceded territory and say, you can't do this on our land. You're reversing everything we've done over the last 50, 60 years. And that's another one I would talk about for a quick second. Unceded territory is a concept in law. And the courts acknowledge it. We're going through an injunction where the courts acknowledge at the very beginning that they're on unceded territory. And then they say, yeah, but it doesn't matter. We're still going to throw you in jail. What we're doing there is not protesting. We keep trying to get them to change it to protectors, and they won't. We're protecting the land. We're not protesting. There's no violence that's come out of the mountain protectors or the watch house at all. We follow that as an important code. We follow traditional ceremony. We pray, and do all of that work. I lost where I was, probably just as well. Anyway, so our somehow we have to get them to acknowledge unceded territory as a legitimate thing. And what was that? There's a song where it's actually Buffy St. Marie. People hate poetry. I don't buy into some of that stuff. But anyway, she says, even when Germany fell at your hands, you left them their pride and you left them their land. What did you left for these ones? And we're still getting colonialism. As you go through this course, I asked you to decolonize your minds. Look at it. How much of this is controlled? And that's an example of it. They call us protesters. We're protectors. We're not here to protest. We're here to say this is our land and we don't want you here. We want to protect everything that's on that land, the fish, the deer, the eagle, the people. That's what we're doing. We're not radical. We're not on some crazy, mountain protector specifically has never been involved in stopping traffic on the road or anything like that. None of the our elder says we must win the hearts and minds of the people. We are also governed both Trans Mountain and Watch House by 3 elders. One is my elder, I refer to all the time. So anyway, that's that. But I encourage you as well. Like we talk about to look at how you can do this stuff, how you can integrate some of the Indigenous things. We have vision quests, and a vision quest is where you go up to the mountain for as many days as you need with no water, no food, and just your ceremonial stuff in one blanket. And you stay until you get the vision. And the question you're asking at the very first vision quest is, what am I supposed to do in my life? And an elder, Deshane from the Anishinaabe Nation, from the Turtle Lodge Healing Center, used to say, well, you want to know what's wrong with our country? All the people that run it have never been to the mountain. And when you haven't been to the mountain, you go to the wind that blows the strongest. You can't help but go with that because you haven't gotten your roots to be able to stand up and say, this is what I want and this is who I am. And there's been a lot of work. I talked to our own people about decolonizing their minds. There's been a lot of work with colonialism that has influenced. And it's going to go one more final point, and that's that there's jargon that comes out and is used by politicians, and they use it once or twice. They see if everybody likes it, and if everybody likes it, they'll follow it. So residential schools were jargon. They said to the community, we're going to convert people to this. And the community liked that. They thought it was good until they found out it wasn't. The same way that they thought it was good that women didn't vote until they found out it wasn't good that they didn't vote. And so the other jargon then became the technical schools that Ryerson drafted up, where people are going to become educated in technical work, but they're only allowed to be educated in technical work that they could use on the farm. You could not learn how to fix a Chevy only at Massey Ferguson, and then we went past that, and the new one, and I need you to take a look at this thing. The new one is reconciliation. That's the new catchphrase, and they all talk about reconciliation. They all talk about unceded territory. And Trudeau promises that he's going to fix the water for all the nations. He fixed the easy ones, left the hard ones standing. And I kept saying for years, I've been saying, wait till it's getting close to election time. He'll fix the other ones. And that's what's happening now. Yet he can give lifted permission to go onto Indigenous territory and set up a water filtration system so they can sell water to you and me. And they're only charging them like 10 cents a million gallons or some darn, I don't even know the figure, it's so ridiculous. I took it out of my head. But they can do that, and here's a simple idea. Well, if you want to do it, situate yourself at one of these places that doesn't have clean water and offer that, provide that to them as a part of your payment for getting this water. So anyway, that's the idea of colonialism. What we've run into here a lot is that colonialism, whatever ministry they're under, they follow suit. We've had trouble with every ministry that we've tried to deal with because they all fall in line with the colonial dogma, and the courts is probably the worst. The RCMP and the courts were set up to, RCMP specifically were set up to take care of the Indigenous problem, quote unquote. Anyway, probably gone well over time. Oh, yeah. You got 7 minutes.
Yeah, I think we could just move to have just a couple of questions, and also just thank you so much for sharing all the stories.
Right.
But I guess before we move on, I just wanted to make a quick plug, given that Jim has done so much, and the fact that he also was arrested and convicted unjustly. So we're still, there's like a legal support fund going on. So if you share this or donate yourselves and spread the word around to help what he's doing, it's just incredible, important work. So just wanted to keep this up, and while we prepare like some questions, but maybe given time we'll just ask one, and then let the audience continue with that.
Yeah. Tana had prepared some questions, and I'll just try to sum them up and then maybe leave time for just one question from the audience. So in the spirit of this, well, thank you first and foremost so much for sharing that incredibly detailed documentation of violations of law and environmental contamination and all this that Trans Mountain is doing. I think in the spirit of this kind of professional development seminar, and most of the graduate students here, we're all sustainability, environmental researchers looking to kind of contribute to evidence that might be able to help us figure out how we can, change some of this stuff. For example, stop Trans Mountain Pipeline from developing and expanding and committing to this future that is massive amounts of oil consumption, et cetera. What does someone like you who's at the front lines documenting all this, what type of evidence and types of research could we as graduate students provide to someone like you, and how can we take all of these stories and contribute it into our research practice?
Okay, well, I'm going to start as well. We already have 3 different classes in the one of the environmental courses that have done work for us, and we're looking to get another year of that going. They've documented spills all the way along the pipeline and all sorts of other things that we asked for. I've done a really good job. It's mapping, and part of the mapping was to work out how someone who suddenly finds out they have a problem in spasm, not necessarily pipeline, do whatever, can stand up and find out how to deal with it. So if you look to the books that they've done, they did an amazing job, all 3 classes. Look at the books they've done, you can actually find out how you do that work. So with you, it's like come to the line, come to the watch house, find out what's going on. And try really a little bit harder, even though how hard you've tried. I don't know any of you per se, but try a little harder, no matter how hard you've tried, at understanding the existential nature of what's going on right now. We're dead. And I hate melodrama, but that's it, It's like, if we don't address this stuff, we're going to be in serious trouble. One of the greatest projections I saw of that was that the African nations would be in better shape than us. So I thought, oh, right on, payback time. Anyway, it's another story. And also stand up in favor, stand up against the it's not just a matter of doing a little statement about, we recognize we're on unceded territory. When you recognize that, what do? Because our nations asked you to come in a good way, to do good things, according to our charts, not according to their charts. And so we ask you to do that, to stand up. And when we have things and come and join us, see how you can contribute, Watch House, you've got a meeting next Thursday night at the Longhouse Church, and how do we build this? We're building councils, and we're building different things. There needs to be, I know there's some work, some of the people here have already been doing around university involvement in our work. And that needs to continue, right? The university we need to make sure people here, and especially in a melting pot like this, where there's people from all sorts of different nations, carry that back with you. When you get home, when you talk to your mom or dad later on, send them a message saying, hey, Mom, can you call the Canadians, embassy and tell them you don't like the fact that they're shipping dirty oil to Asia? And do that stuff. And I'm trying to keep this short, and I can't. I was involved with with the Woodward Squat when we organized to take over that building and make people look at homelessness, which is still an ongoing thing. It's nothing I want to tell you. Recognize if you become an activist, it never ends. But what we did, we occupied the building. We ended up finding out that people were sending messages to the Canadian government from Jamaica and Finland and stuff like that, and that caused them to change. They're so worried about their public image outside of Canada. They don't care about it inside. They're really worried about it outside. So anyway, that's a couple of things.
Hopefully this works. It's not on currently.
Thanks so much for the presentation. I'm just wondering, when you're talking about jargon and kind of like the
Well, I think you move forward. I think you move forward in whatever situation you're in, where they put something progressive out there. But an example of that is they will not reach back with that act. There are certain things they will not touch with that act. And when they talk about Indigenous rights, they talk about it within the context of chief and council, not traditional. We're traditionals that are doing this. All the other sites that you see, it's been traditional men. It hasn't been men and women. And then everybody. It hasn't been, for the most part, I'm going to say there are a few. I was called up on this earlier in the year. For the most part, there haven't been that many, chief and council involved in resisting the pipeline. And just really briefly, what that's about is traditionals are taught that they work for the next 7 generations. And people in council understand that they have to work for the next election. They have to look good in 5 years or 4 years, whatever it is with that council, or they don't get reelected. So so they're caught up in that whole sell-off thing, Anyway, yeah, that's so it's watching that, and when stuff moves forward, making sure it doesn't get moved back, and Trudeau was a classic example. He was going to overhaul the Canadian energy regulators. Well, they were, I can't remember what they're called then. They're just the same thing. There's no environmentalists on that board. And he was going to make sure all the Indigenous nations had water, and there's still 1/3 of them that don't. But it's the third that are the hardest to do. And now he's bringing it out at election time. So that's the other one. Go ask your elected representatives what they're doing, and if they're standing for this contamination of our earth. I hope that answered your question. Yeah. Paul wanted me to put pictures of deer in there, and I didn't get time to do it.